Okay, so they're notifying viewers we're going live. I'll see if people start joining.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably have questions.
Unless it's how do I get my cats to get along? That is a 2-hour question.
Right. Okay. We have a couple of viewers joining. So this is the first time we've gone live, guys, so please bear with us because I'm not really sure what we're doing here, but as far as TikTok goes.
Adapt.
But this is Katenna. She is an animal trainer, and we are doing some operant conditioning training with Meemie right now in treats. And then there's Manka here. So if you guys have any questions at any time, we'll try to answer them. I'm Carly. I'm the executive director of RAR Sanctuary. And yeah, we just thought we would try to do a live video and see what happens in real time. You can see Manka, how big she is compared to a person. So what we're doing here is Meemie is afraid of staying in her lockout cage, her shift cage. And so we're trying to train her to become less fearful of it. And we let Meemie do what she wants. This isn't training for any sort of reason other than just to get her more comfortable with it. And we don't make her do anything. So Manka is trying to reach Katenna right now with her little paws. So yeah, I'm just going to film this while Katenna talks a little bit about what she does. And yeah, we're going to, if you guys have questions. Okay, good. I see a comment. So I love the concept of not touching them. I see many sanctuaries who cross this boundary. Yeah, agreed. Thank you. It's a really, really bad message to send. It's a really bad idea. Oop, Meemie just got a little scared. That's okay. So we're no contact, and we just got accepted into the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, and part of their rules also are no contact, no exploitation, obviously. So that's what we stand for here. So the point of this lockout cage is to give Meemie, a vaccine with like a pole syringe, that type of thing, and we safely can go in and clean. Manka is getting treats for free because she's not afraid of her. She's perfect and she's not afraid of her cage. Meemie's perfect too, but okay. So Katenna is clicking with her mouth.
Because I'm unprepared and I forgot my clicker. And you'll see I'm kind of whipping it a little bit. What I'm trying to do is get it to fall through the cage because I don't want to encourage her to use her claw, because sometimes it gets caught on top, and I don't want to encourage that.
Yep.
Swiping. So I'm just trying to get it to fall through the bars. And sometimes Manka will jump up, she's not going to do it now, to get her food. So I try to bring her down. Because again, I'm trying to encourage to not have her claws on the chain link.
So Katenna, because I don't really understand, I'm not an animal behaviorist. So you went to school for this, which yes. I think that's really interesting if people want to hear about that at all. How do you go to school for an awesome thing like animal behavior?
Well, my undergrad was in biology and chemistry. And I knew I wanted to do something with animals. So I just started volunteering at an animal shelter. So be careful. That's like the intro drug. It's the gateway drug.
Right.
And then you get sucked in. And then I found a animal behavior learning and cognition program. So I moved to Rhode Island to go to Brown. And when I was there, I studied canine communication, so how dogs talk to each other in a social group. And of course, I didn't find anything statistically significant.
So how did you find out about that program? For anyone who there's somebody who says that's their dream study subject. So did you research and find Brown offered something that you wanted, or?
I think the big thing is to find the advisor that does something that you're interested in.
Okay.
So I was specifically interested in working with domestic cats and dogs. And my advisor had an interest in domestic dogs. So she was doing research with them. So it could be psychology, ethology, zoology, biology, animal behavior, what else? Animal husbandry. There's all kinds of programs. So your degrees can be in a variety of things.
Yep.
So my degree is experimental psychology, but my work was animal behavior learning and cognition, and my research was communication.
Very, very cool.
So find an advisor that does something that you're interested in. So if I could find an advisor that did something with domestic cats, then I would go for that for my PhD, because I would really like to be Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones, yes. So she...
And I'll carry a whip wherever I go.
Hi, Nicole.
So I've got a big fat one. We're going to give that to me. Delicious.
So we usually do Meemie and Manka first because, well, Mimi's the one who's afraid of her cage, although she's doing great right now.
Yeah, and she came right in. I opened it up and she came right in.
So what she really hates is when we close it behind her. And as you can see from this like little pulley, yeah, we can close it. We open it and close it from the outside. Meemie is a good girl. Nicole says, good girl, Meemie. Meemie.
And we try to advance a little bit each time. And the beauty of this is it just goes at whatever pace she's comfortable with. So sometimes I screw up and make a noise. Like if I move this and it makes a noise. So just touching that changed it.
Yep.
And I want to try to avoid eliciting a fear response, because that can activate a stress response in her body, which can shut down the cortex part of the brain. And it can trigger, it's called an amygdala hijack, where the amygdala part of your brain takes over and it's just kind of autopilot. So I want to make sure that I keep her brain in sub-threshold, in a place where this part of her brain can think, process, make choices.
Yeah, and I related that to like if anyone has ever had a panic attack. Yeah. If you're having like a true panic attack, you can't really think because your amygdala is hijacked. Okay, so how old is she? This is terrible because I'm not in front of my computer and I really should know this, but because I live this every day. She is 7 or 8. I think she's 8 now, which is insane to me.
Well, I have to calculate to figure out my own age.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know my age, so I should get a pass here. And she has such a cute name. Yes, her name is actually, we didn't name any of the cats that came here. They all were surrendered to us or adopted to us. So Mimi's name came from the Screamin' Meemies, which apparently...
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's like this old-timey thing that people... I don't think it's really like appropriate now. I think they used to call it PTSD, that, and how they used to call PTSD shell shock. It came from the Screamin' Meemies because an older woman named her who had rescued her, and she was screaming all the time when she was a baby and had to be bottle fed. So that's a little trivia. But she lived up to her name because she's a very scary kitty. So someone asked, how long does it usually take for the animals to get used to it? Good question.
And the answer to any behavior question is always, it depends.
It depends, yep.
So it depends on the severity of whatever we're working on. So the severity of her fear. Because it may be that we need to work on her being comfortable with me walking up to here. Or it may be me standing here. And she was pretty comfortable with that. So we were able to get her to come in fairly quickly.
Yep.
So at first it was getting her to take 1 or 2 steps. Placing her paws inside of the cage. And now I'm trying to get 4 paws inside.
Yep, so you see that she's got 2 paws in the front and 2 paws are still hanging out.
And there's this little bar. So from my angle, what I'm doing is making sure the full diameter of her head is past that bar. So that far into the cage. So I'm doing a rough distance measurement. Mm-hmm. So when her head goes past that point, from my perspective, I mark it. And I don't have my clicker, so I'm just doing a mouth click.
Yep. If you guys hear a cat, it's Linus, our domestic cat. He comes out on a leash, and we keep him outside of the perimeter for his safety, but... Hi, buddy. Hi. So he's on a harness, and he will stay here until we come out. We usually hang out with him, but we don't want him to be here when the cats are getting trained. Somebody said, why is Meemie so quiet? And that is a good question, but it's because she's focusing so hard.
Yeah, and because those were stew steak. What is that called?
Yeah, beef. Stew beef.
Stew beef.
Yep.
Stew steak.
Stew steak. Yeah, same thing.
I don't know meat. And they're nice little pieces. So a big thing is cutting them into small pieces so that the animal can eat it, ingest it, and swallow it quickly.
Yep.
Because if she has to take it and run off with it to eat it, then it slows down repetition. And so I'm able to give her lots of reps. And she's doing one after another after another. And
actually, as you guys have seen, she usually takes her bigger pieces of meat, shows it off, growls, and then goes way up. She's reaching.
So she's starting to get frustrated. And I don't know if you can hear, but she's making some more
She's making
grumbles.
a couple of grumbles,
so
yeah.
This one is a little bit bigger. So I'm watching those feet.
I'll try to get a little closer to her face, unless you think this is going to screw anything up. Dear you are. People want to see you. So she's making some thinking grumbles.
Right
Yeah.
there.
And yes, somebody said, do they make good pets? No, absolutely not. We definitely understand, of course, in an ideal world, like Disney movies, I grew up wanting a pet tiger because of Princess Jasmine, but it's not a good idea. It's illegal for the most part. You can't breed the wildness out of them. Meemie was bottle fed when she was rescued. Meemie and Manka actually have the same exact background and completely different demeanors.
Different creatures.
It's not right to keep a wild animal in captivity, and we were only doing this because it was their only option. And that's why we try to respect their wildness, but also they will ruin your furniture, they will ruin your house. People, some breeders will tell you that they can be litter box trained. I've never seen that to be true in my entire network of big cat sanctuaries.
Because I feel like it goes against
biology. It's probably possible, but I think that, that would be the exception, not the rule. And most of the time, these cats, there's so many, we've had to, unfortunately, turn down, like, in the past 2 years, like 9 or 10 bobcats that needed homes because we didn't have the space for them. And, it's a whole process to get an enclosure built and everything like that. And a lot of those are people's pets that they're surrendering, realizing, oh yeah, this cute kitten isn't such a good idea anymore. And it's, it's going to bite me. It's going to attack my child. If, that won't happen in the wild, but if you're raising it with a family and they're comfortable enough around you to get aggressive around food, it's just bad idea.
And if we think about it, so domestication is breeding an animal or a species generation after generation after generation to live comfortably with us in captivity. So technically, I don't believe the domestic cat is actually domesticated completely,
right?
Mm-hmm. Because they can survive without humans. So there's feral cat colonies, of course, that need human support, but they're the average, just generic cat can survive on its own. It might not necessarily thrive, but they can survive on their own for the most part, as compared to like a Frenchie, which is not going to make it in the wilderness. They can barely make it in the house.
Right.
I mean, my God. Right. We have domesticated them.
Adorable as they are.
Genetic abominations. Mm-hmm. And I think the average typical house cat is being denied a lot, and their needs are not being met typically because their brains are not being stimulated in a way that's appropriate for their species.
Yep.
The overwhelming vast majority of house cats don't get enough. And then we add in the genetic wildness, that desire to hunt, and it's not a choice. It's not like, oh, I see that thing and I want to eat it, so I'm going to hunt it. So, well, why would you hunt? You have a bowl of food right there. You don't need to hunt my child or whatever. It's just a lot of predatory behavior is a motor pattern, and that is a sequence of behaviors. I don't know it in cats, but in dogs, it's orient, stalk, chase, bite, kill, bite, dissect, consume. And I might be missing some of the steps, but it is a structured motor pattern that is a hardwired pattern of behavior.
Yep.
And they're not choosing to do it. It's just like if you trip over something and you stumble, you're not choosing to catch your step. Your body just does it. Mm-hmm. So something can activate that. Just flip a switch in their brain and turn on that predatory thing. So it's not that they don't respect you. Well, if I feed them enough, then they won't try to hunt my baby. That is not the case. They have hardwired, primitive, instinctive, intrinsic behaviors that we can't control, and you can't tame it out of them. And it is absolutely not all in how you raise them. There's that saying a lot with dogs, and it is not true. You can have a dog that was raised and abused to be a fighting dog, that goes on to be a therapy dog, that works with children in the hospital, and super, super patient and lovely. Like my friend has, Theo. He was a former fighting dog, my friend Trish McMillan. And if you follow him on social media, he was bred to be a fighting dog. And he lives with chickens and cats and horses and dogs and goats, and he's just super chill.
Wow.
And then you can take a perfectly lovely family-bred golden retriever, and in some circumstances, things can happen where they could be raised really nicely by a lovely family who loved them and provided for them. And sometimes wires just get crossed. And I'm just saying golden retriever.
Right.
It could be any breed.
Mm-hmm.
It could be any dog, any individual. And something just happens. And then they end up being aggressive. And you can abuse them excessively, and they can grow up to be perfectly adapted. Or you can spoil them rotten, and they can grow up to be aggressive. And I think it's dangerous to say it's all in how you raise them.
Yep.
Because there are people who do a great job raising their dogs or their cats, and they grow up being aggressive, and the family gets blamed for it.
Mm-hmm.
And genetics is a big part of it. So I think it's 50% genetics, so 50% nature, 50% nurture.
Yep.
In a combination.
Probably with people too.
Yeah. And
Someone said she's looking like stop talking and feed me, which is true.
Right?
Meemie, why is Katenna talking so much?
So what we're doing is waiting for her. So she has learned, and so I should have my meat down, so I'm not being consistent. So what I'm doing is waiting for her front paws to come in. So once her paws are inside, then I grab the meat. So we're having this little sequence of behaviors. So pause, and I grab the meat, and then I stand here and wait for her third and or fourth paw. Is that fourth paw in there?
No, it's not. So someone said stop teasing him. I'm not going to address like a lot of the rude comments, but we're just in case you actually care and aren't just trying to be rude. We are training her to become less afraid of her cage, her small cage. She has a large enclosure. This is just called a shift cage, and that is just for medical treatment and for locking them out safely so that the humans can go in and clean, set up enrichment, vet care, all that stuff. So that's the only reason that we're doing this. Usually, Katenna, you come like once a week, I'd say. Usually they get normal food. They don't, we don't do this training all the time. So, and actually, it might seem like we're talking too much and Meemie's waiting, but this is actually good enrichment for her.
Pay attention.
Well, but it's also good enrichment for her because, it's very important to have certain things changed up a little bit for animals that unfortunately have to live in captivity.
And teasing would be putting it right in front of her face and preventing her from having access.
Right.
This is actually giving her control.
Right.
So she's in charge of this. She determines when I give it to her. Teasing is, I'm going to withhold it no matter what you do and not let you have it.
Yep.
Sorry.
So how old was Meemie when we got her? Meemie was probably 3 or so when we got her. But the wildlife rehabilitator in New York, where she came from, is a friend of mine, I'm the executive director here. And so I had the pleasure of knowing Meemie since the day that she was rescued. And she was a tiny, screaming little baby. And she basically has had that same personality her whole life. And somebody asked about the meowing. I know some of you guys joined later. That's Linus, our domestic cat. He gets to come out on a harness, and he's just kind of meowing at nothing right now. Hey, Linus. So he is, you can see there's something he's stuck to, but he wants to come in here, but obviously we're not going to let him anywhere near the, but he wants to. Some say he's brave, some say he's dumb, but I think he's just orange. He's the most orange cat that ever oranged. All right, buddy. All right, so Manka is just hanging out up here, just watching. So where was she rescued from? Meemie was rescued from, I believe her story was she was found, somebody found her abandoned. I think Meemie was found abandoned in someone's barn. And the fact that she was by herself, I think they waited a little while to see if the mother would come back, but the fact that she was by herself, usually there'll be a couple of kittens. 3 generally, I think, is the average. Don't quote me on that right now. So somebody brought her to a wildlife rehabilitator and saved her life. Her mother may have left her because there was something wrong with her. We're not sure about Meemie's sense of smell. We find that she can't really find things in her enclosure, even when they're right next to her, so we're not really sure. But she was unreleasable because of mostly the fact that she imprinted on her wildlife rehabilitator and she failed her hunting tests. So that's Meemie's story. And Manka has a similar story. Same wildlife rehabilitator in New York, but she was found in like a flower bed, I think, abandoned somewhere else. And she was brought. There was something wrong with Manka's eyes when she was a kitten, but there is nothing wrong with her eyes now. And then we have Dakota and Moxie, who came from they were privately owned. So and then their owner moved out of the country, so they needed a place to surrender them. And it's not legal to own them unless you have special permits and you're qualified, which is a good thing. But so that's how those two came to us. Someone said, what are we trying to do? Yeah, we're training Meemie to become less fearful of her cage, just so that when we lock her in here, which is very rare, but we lock her in here when she needs like a rabies vaccine. They need vaccines and medications like house cats do. So we're not making her do this. She's doing this and she's just getting rewarded. And if she wants to walk away and when she tells us she's done, she's done. Do any of the big cats purr? Yes, these bobcats purr. I think cougars purr. So basically the rule is if you can roar, you can't purr. And if you can purr, you can't roar. So lions and tigers do not purr, but they roar. Smaller cats, bobcats, they purr. Manka purrs a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry, honey. So that piece of meat hit the cage and made a noise, and it scared her.
Yeah. Manka is very patient back here.
And they definitely work harder for the beef than they do the chicken.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah, like
Hey, Maggie.
the repetition slows right down.
Yeah, so we were feeding them stew beef, and we were feeding them chicken gizzards. And they like both, but they definitely like the red meat the most. Yeah, so y'all need mods for some of these comments. I'm old. I don't know what I'm doing here on TikTok, so maybe we'll get there someday.
I don't even know what a mod means.
Yeah, moderator.
Oh, okay.
This is the first time we've ever gone live, so bear with us.
I don't even have a TikTok account because I just got addicted and was sitting on it for days and couldn't leave, so I had to uninstall it.
Oh, sorry. Somebody wrote, "Can people volunteer for this, or is it only trained professionals?" I think you can. So you do a lot of work in domestic animal shelters, and can people volunteer? Maybe if they had someone like you supervising them, right?
Yes, and it depends. So some shelters are not open to public volunteers. Some shelters accept everyone. Most have a training process. So you have to go through safety and like disease prevention and all that sort of stuff. I'm doing a terrible job of cutting that. I'm sorry, Meemie.
Someone asked if they have shelter for when it rains and snows. Yes, bobcats are found in every state. These guys are honestly a little bit overweight.
And keep in mind, wild bobcats don't necessarily have a house for them.
Exactly. Wild bobcats will go under brush and little trees, but these guys have so this entire section of their enclosures are covered, and they also have straw beds and houses. This is Manka's little house back here. Meemie has a couple of them, and it's full of straw. So bobcats up here are used to, it got really, really cold one night last year. It got like -17, I think. It was really, really rare. We're in Rhode Island, and we were really worried about them. So we came out, and they weren't even in their dens. They were just hanging out completely unaffected. So we fattened them up a little bit for the winter. Some birds are flying overhead. And we're in the process of leaning them out a little bit for the summer. We have 4 currently.
And I am not helping by doing the training. I'm just feeding her food.
Well, it's funny too because Dakota and Moxie are they came together. They were raised together. They're spayed and neutered, and they will fight with each other when we cut down the food. So we have to go really slowly. We are keeping them because they're all non-releasable. So we are licensed as a sanctuary. We're not licensed. We're not wildlife rehabilitators. These guys were deemed unreleasable by a federally licensed wildlife rehabilitator. Needed a place to go. Basically, their option was the state will take them and kill them, or they can be placed at a sanctuary. So, luckily, these guys got placed with us. And we're really small, obviously, so we appreciate the support and the following. We try to emulate what the bigger sanctuaries are doing, like Wildcat Ridge Sanctuary. They're amazing, and they're such nice people. Wildcat Sanctuary does an amazing job too. So luckily, we can learn from the stuff they do and not make too many of our own mistakes.
And if you're interested in learning more about this stuff, this is how zoos work with their animals.
Yes.
Also, so look up clicker training or target training, whatever species. So
That's actually a target. That orange ball back behind Meemie is a target. We were trying to. So yeah, do you want to explain how target training works?
So target training is getting them to touch a part of their body to the target. I was trying to get her to touch her nose to the target so that you can move and position her in a certain place. Because like a dog, you would take a treat and move them around, but you can't do that with a bobcat.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, but you might only be able to do it the one time.
Yeah. Also, you'd probably lose a finger.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So we get them to touch a target in order to position them in a certain place. And like I've seen videos of gorillas that were trained to touch their belly to the target.
Yep.
Then I would hold the target up against the chain link and say that the gorilla puts their belly against the chain link, and then I can do a sonogram on a pregnant gorilla rather than sedating them and throwing them in and stressing their whole body.
So it's kind of the whole point of all this is it's for the animal's benefit. I mean, obviously it benefits us too, but it stresses the animal way less. Like a woman came here. She used to be a trainer for monkeys, and she said that unfortunately they were lab monkeys. Like that's a whole topic for another day. But she would train the monkeys to, like the way Katenna's training these guys, to present their tail to them, so she could give them their vaccines. So that's what we're kind of doing. Meemie is kind of given up, I think.
Yeah, I think she's done.
You done, Meemie?
And that's the thing. If she so I have to have clear, consistent communication with her. So step in with 2 feet. I pick up meat. Come in deeper. I will give you the meat. If you stay in there, I will keep feeding you at a random interval. But if you sit down at any time, you can. You can be done. You can walk away. You can keep playing the game, or you can sit down and end it.
Mm-hmm.
So when she gets full or bored, she can be done.
Yep. And again, for anyone who just joined, this is only for Meemie's benefit, to keep her unafraid of her cage when she's locked in it. And it's taking a while. I mean, it just, like Katenna said before, it depends on the personality.
And it depends on the trainer.
Depends on the trainer. Yeah, it depends on a lot of things.
Some folks that would be much better at this, that would get it done a lot faster. So a lot of this I'm learning, because I train house cats, but I clicker train dogs, and then I started clicker training house cats and realized I'm not that very good of a clicker trainer. Then I started clicker training chickens, and then realized I am terrible. So different species require different things.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was figuring out this species, which is, it's not just a
These
big
are bobcats,
house cat.
yes.
They're different than house cats.
Yep. Someone asked if they're bobcats. Sorry. Yeah, they are bobcats.
And I'm just going to give her
She's going to get a freebie.
a couple of freebies here.
Good girl, Meemie.
Because I always wanted her to end having a good time and not being frustrated or annoyed.
She just broke its neck again.
And a lot of people think, oh, they shouldn't have to work for their food. But that's what wild bobcats do. And the important thing is, whatever species is in your care is allowing them to engage in behaviors that are natural for their species.
Yep.
So her problem solving, thinking, and working for her food is what her species does.
Yep.
So,
and also, she doesn't have to work for her food most of the time.
I mean, she has to do this.
But this is a good thing. Yeah, this is a good thing.
And you could have a gold-plated bowl and give her her food in it, but that's not doing her any favors. Having her work for things and be able to chew on it, like, oh, you shouldn't give her whole bones. She shouldn't have to chew those bones. Yes, she should, because that's what she would do in the wild.
Yeah, and she needs to. They need the bones and organ meat. These guys will crunch right through serious bones.
Sorry,
all right,
babe.
now she's acting like Meemie again.
Yeah.
Good girl, Meemie.
So I shouldn't have stuck, and I know better. I shouldn't have stuck these that far through. So that little event we just had, that is her going over threshold. So if we were still training, she would have to be done because that was a stressor for her. And
Yep.
after that, she needs a break.
Okay. So I'm going to close this. Someone said, do you ever want to pet them?
Oh my God.
We don't want to pet. We understand the urge to want to pet them, of course, but we've been doing this long enough where, you know, interestingly, they don't want to be pet like domestic cats. Like if Meemie sees the tongs coming at her or Meemie sees something coming at her, she feels threatened by it. She doesn't want pets. Manka, you know, look at Manka right now.
That's partially why the target training didn't work for me.
Right. Manka was just sitting there closing her eyes. Honestly, this is hopefully I wish everybody could hear this, but say Manka would like pets because, you know, she'll come up and rub against the fence and purr. She's still a wild animal. She turns on a dime. And if she say I pet her, which I don't and we won't, but if I did and she turned on me and she took my fingers off or something and I had to go to the emergency room, what's going to happen? I'm going to get stitched up and people are going to talk and the state's going to come after these cats and they're going to be put to sleep. So that's the biggest thing. Like, because some people will say, like, it's so mean to not touch them if they want it. Well, it's really for their safety. We don't believe in promoting that. Yeah, exactly. Of course we want, and when Meemie was fully sedated for an exam one time, I pet her because obviously you can't resist, you know, you're holding her for veterinary care. She had to get blood drawn and she was completely passed out. But other than that, no, it's really mostly, of course, you know, we totally understand, you know, and I think most people do understand why we don't pet them, even though if not friend, why friend shape type thing, of course, they're adorable and their little tails, it's just cruel. But, but yeah, if we got hurt, even if we didn't want anything to happen to them, which obviously we would never let anything happen to them. And, you know, something like, you know, the Siegfried and Roy tiger incident, like, thank God that tiger wasn't punished for, you know, acting like a tiger. But
look at how well that tiger knew those people and how experienced they were.
Yep.
And I can't remember which guy it was, but
yep,
they were very good at what they did. And that still happened. I dropped a piece of chicken here I'm looking for. Although somebody will get it. Some bird or something.
Yeah,
yep. Mouse, who knows.
And then Meemie will probably get the mouse.
Yeah. With chicken, so it's like a turducken, but it's a mouse chicken.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, so just to address a couple comments.
Look, this is interesting. So I threw a couple pieces in there. And I don't know if you can see the pine cone. There's a little piece of meat next to the pine cone. She can smell it, but she's trying to locate it.
Oh, interesting.
And she's looking for the, concentrated bit of smell.
Yeah.
So she's narrowing in on it.
Which is actually, we were pretty sure she had something wrong with her scent. So maybe that means she doesn't.
She's getting closer.
Anyone who asked why she's not in the wild, we are a sanctuary. We rescue animals that have nowhere else to go. And there's a couple of videos in our frequently asked questions on our profile page. So that's all I'll say about that. If you really want to know, of course, we don't believe that animals should be kept in cages. This is a last resort. We're just, you know, to avoid euthanasia. So if you want to click on our profile and watch some of the questions that we answer about like why we don't pet them, why they can't be released, please do that. And whoever said we need a moderator is probably right. I'll look into that.
Would you care to volunteer to be the moderator?
Yeah. Bobcats are a bit slimmer. Yes, these cats are sanctuary weight, so they are really chunky in the winter. And believe it or not, a lot of that is her coat. If you guys come back in the next month, she'll thin out quite a bit. But yes, they would be much thinner in the wild because they don't get to eat every day necessarily. So, all right, I'm going to try to figure out how to end this so that Katenna can go and we can move on to Dakota and Moxie. So, like the boomer I am, I can't figure out how to get out of this live.
I don't know. I've never done it before.
Anyone
turn the phone off?
Anyone know how to get out of this?
Throw it in the koi pond. That should end it.
Okay, end live. All right, thank you guys so much. We'll try to do this again.